All right, man. So we got some absolutely huge news here from the Kamala Harris campaign. So the Kamala Harris campaign has been really, really active, and it's kind of been the opposite of the Joe Biden campaign. So what we actually know is that the Kamala Harris campaign has actually been in preparation for years now. So it started preparing back in 2020. The reporting says that all the preparation that was done in 2020 was all supposed to be triggered in 2028. But because of the circumstances of the debate and everything, it ended up getting triggered in 2024. But she was ready. So she had a list of people everywhere that she already had down as supporters. And so nobody else had that list. And so that's what the Times reporting was saying about how she was ready. She's been ready for this moment. She's been preparing this whole time. Her campaign in 2020 was marred with chaos, bad leadership, bad organization, etc. She's flipped that on its head. So far, she's had a couple of kind of interesting decisions that are highly controversial. But for the most part, she's kind of made the right pick. She picked Walz, and she's made the right decision so far. But we've got something else where Kamala Harris is diverging from Biden's campaign strategy, and this is really, really great to kind of explain to us, and really why I think Harris, in terms of campaigning, I don't think policy-wise she's basically the same as Hillary Clinton. I think actually, especially with all of her hard on crime, hard on immigrant stuff now, she's basically the same pretty much as Hillary policy-wise for the most part. Maybe there's some slight differences. But she's very anti-Hillary in terms of campaigning. Not only does she never talk about being a woman, we also see a bunch of different changes in terms of, we saw that story where she's going through the Georgia bus tour in the south of Georgia. Now we have another thing. So this article from Axios, it gives us some really interesting details. It says, Scoop, Harris builds an army of House surrogates. The Harris campaign is casting a drastically wider net in recruiting House Democrats to stump for the presidential ticket, gauging the interest of almost every member, Axios has learned. Why it matters. Over a dozen lawmakers and aides described a night and day contrast with the surrogate operation under President Biden. To many House members, the shift is evidence of their new importance under the leadership of Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a former House member. What we're hearing, Harris's campaign has widely canvassed House members about their openness to being surrogates, an effort that began almost immediately after Biden dropped his candidacy in July. So again, a lot of really quick stuff. She's really quick to act. She's quick to action. She's not reactive. She's kind of proactive, even though I guess you kind of consider this reactive, I guess. But I mean, literally, I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Like kind of the earliest that she could do, right? But so immediately after he drops out, immediately it's, hey man, like, can you guys do this? And she's reaching out to people. It's the ultimate humility on her part. And this is the opposite of Hillary too. Hillary was arrogant. She was arrogant. She knew she was going to win. I saw some like reporting from the New York Times the other day. Like, it was posted on Twitter. It was like telling some anecdotal stories of a couple of people going to Hillary offices asking for signs to put up in front of their house or whatever. And apparently they were like, oh, this scientifically doesn't really help campaigns, so there's no reason to do it. So they just let him go. And even after the fact, she said she won in the areas that mattered, right? So this is a lot of humility on her part and smart strategic behavior, but also a lot of humility, because it takes humility to be like, hey, I need to go to all of these House members to be able to win this election. And I think this ultimately is why her campaign is running so well right now. So it says, the center-left New Democrat Coalition polled their nearly 100 members at the campaign's request to, quote, find out who's available. Representative Andy Kuster, the group's chair, told Axios. A senior House Democrat said the Harris campaign has, quote, asked all members if they're interested in being surrogates, and those who agreed have been contacted each week about their availability to travel. That's crazy. So she's asking all of them if they're interested in being surrogates. They've asked what our interest level is in a way I haven't been asked previously. Often it's the people who really want to go do it who say something. This time they're approaching everyone, said Representative Mark Pocan. So Mark Pocan was formerly, I think, the co-chair of the CPC. I don't think he is anymore, though. But, of course, he's a progressive guy, so it's interesting that, they're picking him as well. It says, zoom in, several House Democrats who were not stumping for Biden have signed on to do so for Harris. Quote, I wasn't a Biden campaign surrogate because I wasn't asked. But Kamala, it's a different story, said Representative Jimmy Gomez, Democrat, California. A top aide to another House Democrat told Axios their boss has been tapped to travel twice and do swing state media for Harris, a, quote, glaring difference from their non-existent role for Biden. They have asked for as many members as possible to be surrogates, said Representative Sidney Kamlager Dove, adding that Harris made the request to her directly when they were at an event together. So she's talking to like all these different representatives and stuff, and even in person basically saying like, hey, like, will you be like a surrogate for me? Again, a lot of humility on top of just smart strategy. I feel like Hillary would never stoop herself down to like that kind of thing where it's like, oh man, doing this. And even Biden, you know what I mean? He's slow, sort of reactive, taking too long, and it's going to do a little bit of defense here. We'll get there. It says, between the lines, the Harris campaign knows, quote, the Biden team had an issue of many members not feeling included and are attempted to address the issue of including more people, said the senior House Democrat. Again, very, very smart strategy. So it says, lawmakers saw Biden's approach as a function of his age and reliance on his tight inner circle and campaign co-chairs, including Representatives Veronica Escobar, Democrat Texas, Jim Clyburn, Democrat SC, and Lisa Blunt Rochester, Democrat Delaware. So I guess the function, don't know how that works, but got maybe double integral of that. It's a triangle, I guess would be shape-wise. He has his circle, and they have their friends, and their friends have their friends, and that's it. And that's maybe what they're comfortable with, said another House Democrat. Biden was, quote, leaning on the ones that were surrogates when he was running the first time in 2020, said Kamala while Harris basically jumped into this a month ago. So a fresh approach, right? From the campaign, we can see this from behind the scenes. Jim Clyburn is pretty much the dude who won Biden the election because a bunch of the people in the exit polls in South Carolina actually cited his endorsement for being the reason why they voted for him. I think Steyer might have actually got more black votes. Because of that, the win was so unfathomable. The wave was just crazy. If that doesn't happen, do all the other candidates drop out? We don't know how that turns out, right? So he's still sticking to his old guard from 2020, not becoming more progressive in this way. He did do a lot of progressive stuff, honestly, as president, but it looks like in terms of his actual, people he's choosing, they're not. And then it does run some defense for him, so it says, yes, but sources noted that the general election was just starting at the time of the disastrous debate that precipitated Biden's withdrawal weeks later. But again, right, slow, reactive. You need to have changed it by then. And Trump has been running for a long time. And then if you're going to be doing the debate, and that kind of stuff, you should have been ready for this. You should have been preparing yesterday, 2 weeks ago, months ago. So no, it's not okay that, the election was just starting. No, the election started a while ago, and you're still keeping the fudging dinosaurs that you had back in 2020. You need to modernize. You need to have your May J restoration, right? So she's had her May J restoration. It was like, okay, we're going to modernize and go to a different strategy because Biden, your strategy sucks major ass. Talks about how she still maintained most of the Biden staff infrastructure. There's some fighting going on the inside of the Harris campaign as well, because the Biden people who are on there are mad about the people that Kamala's bringing on. They want more power. She's hiring some of the Obama people as opposed to the people Biden had. And so there's some fighting going on in there in terms of the roles aren't exactly defined and that kind of stuff. And so it says she's facing a truncated schedule. And Harris is trying to expand the map. Quote, you're seeing surrogates go to Florida. You're seeing surrogates in Texas, said Representative Robert Garcia, the Democrat, California. So Florida and Texas are kind of controversial in terms of whether or not they're actual possibilities. I want to see more polling data. I think if Florida comes within, I think if she's leading by 5 in the polls, I think she definitely wins. She is losing in some of the polls by 2 or 3 points. We're in August, so she could make ground. Trump made really weird surges with, Hispanics are saying, the Cubans, but he made a surge between 2016 and 2020. So unless there was an influx of Cubans or maybe Cubans had an awakening, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But Texas, also another one, we need to see more polling numbers as well. To zoom out, House members feeling more highly regarded by Harris and her team are rewarding the vice president interim with far greater enthusiasm. One House Democrat who expressed interest in speaking at the DNC was told by their staff that while it may have been feasible under Biden, there is far more competition for public-facing roles in Harris's candidacy. The Harris campaign has been hearing from members proactively reaching out with offers of assistance, according to a source familiar with the matter. Representative Jared Huffman told Axios the campaign is, quote, more interested surrogates than they know what to do with. The bottom line, quote, it's night and day, said Kuster, who told Axios roughly 3/4 of her group's members expressed interest in being Harris surrogates. Everybody wants in on the campaign, and they're excited about it. And so this might even be more important than anything else going on, honestly. And so it makes me so confident that Kamala's going to win. These are the kinds of things that lead to overperformances. Biden didn't even do this stuff in 2020. The Sun Belt, I think, is more so the path to victory than the Rust Belt this time around. That could, end up changing if the polls kind of go forward. But the Sun Belt is, where she's making her gains, because her gains are with young people, minorities, etc. Those people are really powerful in the Sun Belt, not as much in the Rust Belt. But this is absolutely huge. And so, she's taking the lead in the polls now. But, this kind of stuff, and then going through Georgia, South Georgia, and I think she's trying to go through Macon and those areas where there's a smaller, because there's the metro Atlanta area, and then there's the other smaller metro areas where there's a lot of support for Democrats. So she's going through there. These are really, really good strategies that I think Kamala Harris is running for her campaign that I think are the things that are going to make sure she can't lose. It can also lead to high, overperformance in the polls in the Sun Belt, because the Sun Belt misses a lot of those black voters, right? They missed a percent, almost a whole percent of vote for Joe Biden in 2020. So those are the people that get missed. So these kinds of things will be able to turn those people out. The only thing I think she's missing is a voter drive. I think she needs a voter registration drive for young people, because young people are surging, but they're typically like the least voters in the elections. So absolutely huge news, really great strategy to hear. She's being proactive instead of reactive and really trying to reach out. A lot of humility, smart strategy positioning. And she doesn't really seem to have like much narcissism going on or any of that kind of stuff that Hillary was marred with, and even Biden, right? Even Biden had so much of that to the point where he didn't want to drop out of the race. He was willing to sacrifice everything, the whole world, for his dumbass candidacy, right? And I thought he was already in that position in 2020 when he ran, because I already thought his brain wasn't functioning. So I thought that was irresponsible in the first place. But maybe argue that's the fault of the voters or whatever. But yeah, great news, a great strategy, super awesome to hear.